guys, we have an urgent breaking news coming out when it comes to nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom. It says here, the bear country pounds Kiev for second night. Power grid hit. At the same time, we have this news coming out. Putin says potential American tomahawks for Zelensky. An attempt at escalation. If such equipments are used against Russia, our response will be overwhelming. Alright, so this is coming out today. Putin is putting out this warning message to the US Commander-in-Chief. Now, the US Commander-in-Chief said that he's not going to send this equipment because we the one that pushed the button. And he said he doesn't want to push the button. And now there's some information coming out that Ukraine possibly have the long range. And so Putin is sending out this warning message. If they get hit with these tomahawks, the bear is going to respond. Alright guys, before I start, for those of you that want to send us letters or prayer requests, you can send it to me, US Santiago, or my wife Jessica Santiago at 3432 US Highway 19. Number 2, Holiday, Florida 34691. Alright, so let's see what's going on here. Once again, the bear country pounds Kiev for the second night. Power grid ablaze. Now, Moscow unleashed back-to-back drone waves on Kiev Thursday morning. The CHP-6 power plant took direct hits. There were 4 injured so far, but the body counts from Wednesday assault reached 19, including 5 young ones. Now, the bear country playing winter-scorched earth. Repair crews are getting ambushed mid-work. Cranes begging Washington for equipment. Winter coming fast and Moscow making sure the lights don't stay on. Kiev Post is putting out the information. Alright, so once again, guys, the grids are getting hit in Ukraine, and the oil refinery is getting hit in Russia. So it's a tit for tat going on here. Let's see what's going on with these tomahawk. Once again, guys, these tomahawk, it seems like there's a possibility Ukraine might have them. It's just who's going to push the button. That's the big question. Now, Vladimir vows overwhelming response if the bear gets attacked by the sleeping giant tomahawk. Now, the bear leader Putin vowed to continue dialogue despite U.S. counterpart, the U.S. Commander-in-Chief, shelving a summit, but pledged a potentially overwhelming response if Ukraine gets Tomahawk missiles. Now, dialogue is always better than confrontation or any disputes, and especially war. We have always supported the continuation of dialogue, Putin told journalists. But if the bear gets attacked, here's the message. If the bear gets attacked by Tomahawk, which Crane desires, the response will be very strong, if not overwhelming. That's coming out from Putin. That's some very, very, very powerful message there. The response will be very strong, if not overwhelming, Putin warned. Wow. And I said this many times, we shouldn't get involved. We should not stick our nose in their operation. See, they call it military operation. Western call it invasion. Donald, again, many times you called out Joe, and you told the American people that Joe is going to take us to WWE3. It seems like you might be the one that's going to drag us to WWE3. Now, again, for those of you that don't know, Donald slapped sanctions yesterday, October 22nd. He slapped sanctions on the bear, the oil companies. That's just the tip of the iceberg. All right, the bear is not pleased. They're not happy with that. That's going to be my next video. All right, but we are getting him, again, Donald is sticking his nose in this operation. And Putin is already warning a huge response would be very strong, if not overwhelming, if his country gets hit by sleeping giant Tomahawk missiles. Earlier, the U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine, Keith, said in an interview that Washington was looking at providing Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine in response to a request from Zelensky. The Tomahawk is a subsonic long-range cruise missile designed for precision strike against land targets, with an operational range of roughly 1,600 up to 2,500 kilometers. The Tomahawk can be configured as a strategic weapon with a nuclear warhead, though it is commonly deployed in a conventional form for tactical strikes. So it's a very powerful weapon. Very powerful. Extremely powerful. This will basically spark WW3. Tomahawk are typically launched from ships or aircraft, which program the missile before launch, with target coordinates, routing flight profile, and digital terrain maps. Now, strategic launch platforms also upload arming codes. Now, the missile navigate using a combination of inertial and satellite navigation. Truly apologize if I said that name wrong. So, satellite navigation. So, what's that supposed to mean? It means that we're the only one that have the satellites. Zelensky cannot push the button. So we could put Tomahawk in his country. Zelensky cannot push the button because they don't have the satellite. So who pushed the button? Us. The sleeping giant. That's why Donald does not want to get involved in that. Donald's like, look, you guys are not ready for Tomahawk. You don't even have the satellites. And it would take months to learn how to use these things. And I'm not pushing buttons here. That's the reason why Joe didn't send those Tomahawk. The security reasons, strategic launch system are generally operated only by U.S. personnel. Allied personnel typically do not receive access to these launchers. Initially, the idea of transferring Tomahawk to Ukraine seemed unlikely because it implied not only providing missile but also transferring launch platforms and deploying U.S. personnel on Ukrainian soil to program and fire them. Now I want to show you something really quick here. Before I forget, I want to show you this really quick. This is coming out from the U.S. Commander-in-Chief. Give me 1 second here, guys. Now, he did mention this yesterday. Okay, so I think Canadian Prepper is the one that shared it. Hold on, give me a second here. So U.S. has everything to do with everything Crane does. I agree. I totally agree with Canadian Prepper on that one. I do agree. So the U.S. has everything to do with everything Crane does. Absolutely. If they disapprove, they will pull support. The U.S. Commander-in-Chief isn't denying they're being used in this manner, ergo tacitly supporting their use in this manner. So it says here, the U.S. commander said Wall Street Journal story on the USA approval of Crane being allowed to use long-range missiles deep into Russia's is fake baloney. The U.S. has nothing to do with those missiles, wherever they may come from, or what Crane does with them. Okay, it seems like Crane has something. They have a long range, and he knows that the bear's gonna get hit. The bear's gonna get hit. He knows that. So he's just trying to cover his behind on this one here. If the bear gets hit from a missile fired from Crane, we are not responsible. We don't know nothing. I don't see nothing. I don't hear nothing. Whatever Crane fired towards the bear, we had nothing to do with it. That's why Putin is saying if we get hit by those tomahawk, there will be huge consequences. Donald is just trying to protect his behind. Canadian Prepper is right. The U.S. has everything to do with everything Crane does. Absolutely. You cannot give them tomahawk and say, hey, we have nothing to do with those tomahawk. Whatever they do with it, it's not our problem. Yes, it is the Sleeping Giant problem. You supply those equipment. Now it says here, such a deployment would risk being treated as a direct Sleeping Giant strike on the bear, U.S. strike on Russia, potentially provoking rapid and dangerous escalation. Now, meanwhile, the bear leader Putin said on Thursday, today, October 23rd, 2025, the latest U.S. sanctions targeting the two major oil firms were serious, but not strong enough to significantly affect the economy. So Donald is slapping them with sanctions. In other words, we are involved in this biblical war. Donald just signed it. We are involved. Again, Donald cannot say we're not involved. We are involved. He slapped sanctions. It's common sense. The Sleeping Giant is very notorious for doing stuff like that. You know, they slap people. Well, that wasn't us. You know, we all the way out here, so we don't know what's going on. The Sleeping Giant on Wednesday hit the bear, two biggest oil producers, Rosneft and Lukoil, with sanctions, the first against the bear since the U.S. commander returned to office. Sanctions are serious for us. Of course, that is clear, and they will have certain consequences, but they will not significantly impact our economic well-being, Putin told reporters. Now, he added that the sanctions were an unfriendly act, and that does not strengthen the bear-U.S. relations, which have already just begun to recover. Now, the U.S. Commander-in-Chief attempted to foster ties with the bear at the start of his term, but he has become increasingly frustrated with Vladimir's refusal to agree to a cease plan, complaining that his peace talk with him were not going anywhere. Donald, it's none of your business. What goes on there, that's none of our business. There's a lot of biblical war going on in the world, and you're more focused on the bear. The Sleeping Giant was not built to get involved in other nation foreign affairs or their biblical war stuff. It says here the right leader held off introducing new restrictions against the bear for months, but his patience snapped after plans for a fresh summit with Vladimir in Budapest collapsed. Still, even after new sanctions and the summit's postponement, Vladimir appeared to remain open to dialogue. All right? So Vladimir is saying, Donald, I'm hurt. But this love letter, this sanction, it's not going to hurt me. But why would you hit me with that? It didn't do much, but I thought we were friends. So once again, guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Donald just made the first move. Slap sanctions, cancel the meeting, and Vladimir is sending a message. Vladimir is telling him, he's warning Donald and Zelensky and NATO. If such equipments are used against my country, the bear, our response will be overwhelming. So, I believe Orishnik could be used. And Orishnik is no joke. And I hope Donald knows what he's doing. Because all that time he was talking bad about Joe. And here he is, walking the same footstep as Joe. The only difference is that NATO is paying for our equipment. Joe was giving it for free. But if you look at the bottom part right here, the US has nothing to do with those missiles. What missiles? The US has nothing to do with those missiles. And wherever they may come from, or what Crane does with them, it's not our problem. I agree with Canadian Prepper. The sleeping giant has everything to do with everything Crane does. Alright, so what are your thoughts on this, guys? Leave comments down below. But we're definitely seeing nation against nation building up. The bear has sent a warning, and it seems like there's a possibility Tomahawks, if it's not in Crane, it's in NATO. Possibly, who knows, maybe Poland. And it's just a matter of time when someone push the button. We don't know who's gonna push it, but again, if the bear gets hit, that's gonna be game on. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Till next time later. Peace.